How is everyone doing? Strength Chat episode 28, I think I've got that right. Hopefully I'll stop sweating through this as well. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, the current British Junior British Champion and also a squat gold medalist at this year's IPF World Championships, Mr. Josh Greenfield. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm alright, you?
Not so bad. What have you been up to? What's been going on?
I've been doing the same old thing, trying to keep my body weight down a little bit, training as hard as ever, setting new goals, working towards them, try to keep up my social media, really try to stay on top of that, try to keep that little bit of a name I kind of made for myself a little bit. But yeah, just kind of the grind, mate, week in, week out, getting things done. Trying to avoid pizza, but
don't we all?
Yes.
So the target coming up is the British Championships. Obviously, you've got your gold medal from the Worlds.
Yeah.
What is the target at the British?
So the target at the British, things changed a little bit because I have the British in around 6 weeks' time, and then I have the Arnold's actually 3 weeks after that.
Okay.
So that's out in Barcelona, where I look to squat the world record. I give it the big one, leading up to World, saying that I was going to have a pop at it, but then missing my second squat by moving my foot and stuff like that, gold was always kind of priority. So I have the Arnold after that. So the result of the British for me now is just to, I'd like to push near the 500 Wilks, but if I feel like it's better to save it for the Arnold and just make sure I win the British, because that means more than anything to come from the juniors to the Open and then win. That means more than anything. So if I can just kind of win the British and then we move on to the Arnold 3 weeks later, look to go 500 Wilks and look to take the squat world record.
Okay. What was it like competing at the Worlds?
It was, I'm not going to lie, when I first got out to Canada I was really excited. Like, you know how you feel like when you're going on holiday and stuff like that, and I got out there and I was like buzzing, I couldn't wait to be there. Then I got there and I was making weight and stuff, so it got a little bit stressful. I was out there with my dad, and then my best pal Kieran Gray, who also competed out there as well, he came and stayed with us for like 5 or 6 days after he'd competed. But yeah, it was good. And then like the competition, just literally to be on the same platform as people like Garrett Blevins, Bryce Lewis. I trained with Bryce, Korchek, Calgary Barbell.
Nice.
I trained there. Like, we did our last few sessions together. We planned that before I actually went to Canada. And that was like really, really good to be around somebody like that, and just we're very, very similar people, like very, very similar sense of humour and stuff like that, so we got on really, really well. But just being on that platform with guys that I've been powerlifting now just over 3 years. Like Bryce Lewis, I remember the first video I watched was a squat tutorial by Bryce Lewis. I remember because he had blue Nike Romalia. I'm pretty sure they were blue or something like that, and he was like one of the first guys I ever watched, and to be sharing a platform with him, and at one point to be sitting on the podium whilst he was next to me was pretty cool. So yeah, it was a great experience, man.
For anyone who watched the World, I don't think I've ever seen a lifter enjoy the time on the platform.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that was, do you know what, right? I said this to a lot of people, winning the squat gold was like, that was the big goal. Like, just to be at one point in my first Open Worlds, to be stood on that centre podium. Hopefully there's more of them to come in the future, but to be stood on that centre podium with a couple of legends either side of me, even if it's just that one medal, meant the world. But then I never really thought about this afterwards, but I just literally, I went out there and I kind of did my thing. I didn't try to be somebody who I'm not. Like, you may know I'm a little bit of a joker, I like to mess around, you may have seen my Instagram and stuff like that. I like to have fun, and I went out there and just kind of did what I did, and people came up to me after, and they were genuinely like, you were the most exciting lifter to watch, and like, you were unbelievable to watch. And like, I went out on the platform, I literally knew like 10 people in the crowd, and every time I went out, the crowd went, man, I remember going out for my first squat and I was thinking, who are all these people? Where have they all come from? And that was probably the biggest thing to me, like, people kind of, the support they showed me, how they said that was exciting to watch the lift, and kind of, it helps me make a little bit of a name for myself, because powerlifting is like my life, 110%. It's everything I do. Like, there's nothing else that happens in my life. It's not very exciting. But yeah, it was that was probably the best part for me.
It's good that you still enjoyed it in what was quite a competitive 105. I know I watched it and it was quite close.
Yeah, it was fun. Like when squats are done, like I was in the back and like I was having a laugh with Bryce, and that I was like, it's all done now, innit? We go home, kind of thing. Because like bench, I was never going to medal in the bench. I was never going to do anything great there. And then deadlift, literally, I went out and people were loving me. I was just like, I just really enjoyed myself. The people got behind me. I ended up hitting a PB total, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
We lost some kilos here and there, but you know what? The decisions we made on the day, and they were the best decisions for that day, which is happy with what the outcome was.
Good. So as you mentioned, sort of making a little bit of a name yourself and for yourself. You're probably best known for your squat. Obviously, you mentioned you wanted to go for the world record. So I thought, what best to go through your top tips, your top points when people are actually squatting. Because I find I train mainly people who are complete beginners and just want to get involved in strength training. And I think sometimes when they have a bar on the back, they just get more nervous than anything else. Whereas with a deadlift, if you don't pick it up,
you just let go of it, right?
So what are your top tips for squat?
So when it comes down to squatting, like developing my squat has done what everybody else's squat has. Like it hit a barrier, like it well and truly did. I remember when I first came into powerlifting, I was lucky. Like it's probably more the way I'm built, not like I'm not naturally like super duper strong kind of thing. But like when I first came into squat and like came into sport and powerlifting, I did have quite a big squat, but that was kind of that's just kind of my mechanics more than anything. I'm built for this lift, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but I'd like to be a little bit more of all three, but I'm literally banged towards a squat. So like one of the first things and top tip that I could ever give anyone, really take your time on what I did. I took my time, I videoed every set that I ever did, and I kind of broke it down, and I looked at being very effective from A to B and back to A. Like I was kind of on the way up, I'd be like tipping forward, I'd be falling backwards, the line just wasn't there, it wouldn't be over my midfoot, and that's one thing that I really took time out to do. I kept it light, I didn't go anywhere near a max for like 12 to 14 weeks, and then I came back. I actually broke my foot in that period as well.
Right.
I came back after 4 weeks of being in pot, and I squatted like 5 kilos under my max for a set of 5. And that was literally just because that balance point, it was just there. I didn't feel tipped off. I was very efficient with my line. It was up and down, and that was it. And that to me was the greatest part when I really started to see that this is the lift that I'm going to excel in. That was just kind of my bar placement, my bar path, the way I kind of sit, stuff like that. But then another tip that I give a lot of people is, I say to a lot of people, initially, the first thing when you stand up the weight, that's where it tells you in here. Like I think a lot of powerlifting is mental, especially mental attitude, being mentally strong, kind of be on top of that side. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but you got to kind of get it done. And the first thing for me is, as soon as you feel that weight on your back, that's when the mind tells you if it's going to happen or not. So like one of the top tips that I could give there is, we look at shoulders and we look at hips. You'll see a lot of people do this. They'll kind of stand the bar up, their hips will be here, their shoulders will be here, their ankles will be under the shoulders. So they're kind of like hip hinging the bar out of the rack. So what we look at doing, pulling the hips under the shoulders, having everything in line so it's in the strongest shape possible, and then standing the weight up, taking a nice big deep breath into our tummies, breathing out into the belt, and making that weight feel as light as possible. Because if you stand that weight up and it feels really light, the first thing that's going to come to your head is, I got this. An example I use of that is when Steve Manuel squatted the world record at the Arnold Festival. He stood up the weight, and the first thing that he did, and I remember it like it was yesterday, the first thing he did, he nodded his head. And I was like, do you know what, he's going to smoke it. Like, it doesn't matter what's going to happen, he's going to smoke it. He knows that it's light on his back, it feels light on his back. This is what happens from it. One thing as well that I think people overlook all the time is bracing. I did a little video on it yesterday. I have weird ways of explaining things. I probably explain things the way I do because I try and make it easier for people like myself. Because I'm not the brightest spark in the box. If it's not a barbell and it's not weight on a bar, I don't have a clue, unfortunately. So yeah, one of the things that I really concentrate on is bracing, being as tight as possible. This is probably because just for Worlds, or I'd say around 10 weeks out from Worlds, I actually got injured. It was a low back problem. It was down to glute med, some sciatica. Nearly died in my basement squatting 262, where I hit the hole and my legs went completely numb. And I was just down there and I was like, holy crap, like what do I do? So I kind of had to ditch it, couldn't feel my legs for like 4 or 5 minutes.
I thought you were going to say hours then, I was like...
No, like 4 or 5 minutes I was just laid there, couldn't feel any part of my lower body, and this was just basically my sciatica. My piriformis was really tight, being pressed on that, so I had some physio work and stuff. But bracing is one thing, when I came back from that, I really concentrated on. I actually describe it as taking in through your entry, and imagine you try to push that air out your exit. You get the exit right? So taking big breath in, imagine you try to push it down through and out your exit, and imagine like as it hits the belt, so if you got your belt on, if beltless it still works the same thing, imagine if it gets to the belt and you try to push it out against the belt as well, so it's kind of channeling down and out. Just because if there's any movement in the torso, that's where things start to go wrong. If the torso starts to move, it's then going to move the bar. Then you're going to refer back to the top tip before, where you're going to miss your line. You're going to have a tip forward, you're either going to fall back because there's flexion or extension within the spine, which we don't want, between the bar and kind of hip point where everything happens, like the knee and the hip hinges. We want everything there to be solid, right? So that for me is being as tight as possible and getting your bracing on point is probably one of the things that I'd really concentrate on. And just kind of as well, probably one of the things is people, they'll squat high bar, or they'll squat low bar, or they'll copy what so-and-so does, or they'll copy what or they'll watch Instagram, or they'll... I genuinely get people messaging me. I had a guy message me the other day, genuinely, and he was like, oh, my friend's built like you, can you give him some squat tips? I was like, I went on the video and he sent me this guy's link, and we were nothing alike. Like, we had it completely he must get some kind of different image of what I actually looked like in real life. He was like 6'2". I took it a bit of a compliment. He was like 6. He was like, you guys are built the same, have you got any tips for him? I was like, well, 100% not built the same. He was like, oh, that's my bad, I must have a wrong perception of how you're built. And I was like, 100%. And it's like, don't kind of look at how you move and like your femur length and like your movement arms and how everything goes together. And then to me as well, high bar and low bar, they're not too different, or they are two different bar placements. But when I say, if you said high and low bar to me, I think of two different movement patterns. Like high bar, staying as upright as you possibly can, pushing the knees forward, it's like a little bit of hip coming back.
That's one thing that people, so a couple of powerlifters who've been in the club for a while, and now they started off at high bar, just because that's how most people squat. Making that transition between high bar and low bar, would you make people start off with high bar, and then gravitate to low bar, or how would you go about
so it kind of depends on how much high bar they've done, and 100% on their ability to high bar. Like I saw, the only people that should high bar are babies and Chinese weightlifters. They're the only kind of people that have the ability to bang that bar over the centre of the foot and be bolt upright. Like you've seen a baby sit down, or like a toddler, and they can maintain that because they're flexible enough. And like these high level weightlifters, they do that much aggressive mobility, it's achievable. Like your average Joe, or somebody coming into powerlifting, or your novice even myself, like I don't carry that kind of mobility to keep the bar where it is. So if they have the ability to do that, which I'd be shocked if somebody did, I probably wouldn't move them to... I would never ever move anybody to low bar anyway. I'd kind of progressively just shift it back till they got used to how they're moving and they can keep the bar. Like you can tell if you miss the centre of your foot. If you get up to 70-80%, you miss the centre of your foot, he'll try to put you in the ground. Like gravity will take over. It'll tip you forward, you'll probably get some lower back issue in the time being. So all that happens, if you tip forward, it just becomes, everything becomes a hip hinge. And when it's loaded on your spine, like you don't want that at the top of your back. Everything's falling forward, it's not great for that back, that especially your lower back. So I kind of, if you're high barring, I'd take a look at, if you can stay bolt upright, stay with it, go with it, just grow some unbelievable quads to match and be able to keep pushing that strength up. But if not, I'd kind of step back again like I did take a lot of video footage from the side, look at where like your line is, slow it all down. If you've got an iPhone, you can just slide across the thing at the bottom, and it like goes in little stages. Take a look at where your bar's sitting, and look, oh, the bar's a little bit over my toe. What about if I move it down 2 inches? If I put it here, it'll be a little bit more centered. Get used to that, and if it works for you, and if you can feel it over the center of your foot, go with it. If it doesn't, try and move it a little bit more. Obviously, don't get to the point where like the bar's on your lap, so you're holding it down there, because that's never safe for anyone.
I think you said at the start, sort of getting stronger is about efficient movement. Making sure that it's, strength is a skill you've got to practice.
That is it. It's like technically strong is something that I use all the time when I'm spotting behind, say, my good pals Luke, Kieran, Mark was down there last night when we were training. It's something that I use all the time. Like, being technically strong makes you strong. Like, yeah, you could be the strongest person in the world, but if you don't have technical ability to move weight efficiently, you're not going to be as strong as possible. You could still be stronger than everybody else. You may deadlift 400 kilos, but if you was technically strong, you'd probably pull 450.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Hall, look at him. Like, he's technically a very, very good deadlifter, and he's the number one deadlifter in the world.
Yeah.
Like, he is by far the best deadlifter in the world. He pulled that great amount of weight. I was there, watched it live, kind of thing, and he's just like, people watch him deadlift and like, oh, I want to deadlift like Eddie Hall. You're not Eddie Hall though. That's the real thing. And it's like, if you can become technically better and you can move a weight from A to B and straight back to A. One way I like to describe it, one of my little ways of telling people is, imagine if me and you now decided we're going to leave this chat, we were going to go for a drive, and we put enough fuel in to cover 20 miles. And imagine we drove to Ilkley and back, and that's exactly 20 miles from here to there. And we only got 20 miles worth of fuel. Would we drive to Ilkley and then drive to Otley and then back to here? We wouldn't, because we'd run out of energy, we'd run out of thing that's powering it. So I kind of look at it like that. You go direct, it's there and back. You only got enough energy to go from there, A to B, so let's just go there and back. Don't try to go somewhere else. Like, you won't want to obviously go somewhere else. Like, you don't want to tip forward, or you don't want to fall back, or you don't want to, in the deadlift, you don't want to let it hang out in front of you or pull it in, or the bench, you don't want to miss the line, kind of thing. But it's one of those things, if we can just, you can drill it into yourself, going from A to B and back to A, you will be a much stronger lifter by far.
It's a good example, I like that.
Weird, right?
So you mentioned as well about your sort of built for the squat. In terms of the little tips for someone really tall. Is there anything that you change about someone's squat depending on their height or anything like that?
Yeah, so like somebody could be really tall, but I'll always look at movement arms. So I'll always look at like the femur length. Someone that I give a really good example of, I give this to day-to-day clients all the time, or when I have technical one-to-ones and stuff like that. Someone that I give, my coach, Mark McQueen, he's legs for days, man. That boy has knee to hip. It just goes on and on. That's legit like 20 miles long. His femur is really long. And if you've seen Mark squat, you may have done, he won Worlds last year, and you'll have seen him squat on Instagram and stuff, and he really kind of folds into the hole. But if he didn't do this, he wouldn't be able to hit a legal kind of depth. So I think you could be tall, but your legs, you may be a lot of torso instead of a lot of femur. So I'd kind of take a look at this. If you're tall and you do have quite long femurs, I'd look to have a wider base. Set your feet that little bit wider. But then there's a few things that come into play. If you can hit depth with a wider base, but then I always look at, if knees are folded in when we have a wider base, the knees are just try to come where they're strong, kind of thing. So if that happens as well, if you ever take your base out, if you are a tall lifter and you ever take your base out, your knees kind of start to fold in, i.e. knee valgus. Obviously there are some issues there. It could be glute, it could be adductor, it could be abductor, something like that. But I'd always look at as well, bring my stance in a little bit, because the knees are trying to just be under where they're strong, kind of thing. So yeah, if you're a bigger lifter, look at kind of your femur length and how your torso is built, and then kind of just play around with the stance where you can hit sufficient depth. I'd always say as well, if you push your feet, if you have your feet out, a little bit of toe turnage, so turn out those toes. This will also decrease your range of motion, which, being a taller lifter, going from wherever you are up there all the way down and back up is never going to be fun. I'd always look as well, one cue that I always use is like push your knees to your little toes. Kind of I use this when I coach sumo too. Imagine you're just really forcing your knees out. Keeping the knees out creates room for your torso to kind of sit in between your legs.
A lot of people that I've had before, where taller people have come up and said, "Oh, I don't usually squat. I'm too tall to squat."
Train legs by playing football.
Yeah, but it's a case of not everyone's squat is going to look the same. Like that guy that messaged you, his squat's going to be completely different. Do you think there's? I know that you can have a look at a squat and think, "Oh my god, that looks horrific," but everyone's squat's going to be different. You can still make a little bit like Mark McQueen watching him squat. He's got a pretty decent squat. But you wouldn't take anything away from him.
You wouldn't. Like if you looked at Mark's squat, like you'd think, like the lads take the mick out of him all the time. We're like, that is the worst looking squat we have ever seen. But you know what? A guy last night squatted 340 at 8 at like 140 body weight. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he absolutely smoked it. And like when I was still behind him on the back spot, and I'm just like, this is so weird right now. Like, he's just folding up. But you know what? It works for him, and as a coach, you never ever change that. Like he squats in flat shoes too. He never squat in heels just because it wouldn't be beneficial to him. He doesn't need that kind of mobility or that increased mobility and that kind of knee tracking to wear a heeled shoe. So he squats in flats too. Feet that little bit wider. Mark is, by the way, like 6'2", 6'3". So if there's anybody who is around that height, maybe take a look, see what he kind of does. But yeah, if you looked at it, you'd be like, oh, that's so ugly. But like, man, he's moving serious amounts of weight efficiently. Like, it's bang over the centre of his foot. Like, everything is technically perfect. Like, there's nothing there. It may not look pleasant, but if you look at the technical points, we had some cameras on him, we looked at like his bar path, where it started, where it finished, it'd be A to B. It'd be absolutely bang on. The bar would be over the centre of his foot. He'd be perfectly balanced. He'd be... Yeah, it's just a very, very good spot.
I think most people are looking for that standardised thing, like, oh, I need to do it. I remember one thing, I've had people say that, oh, my knees aren't allowed to go over my toes.
Like you shouldn't do that. It's bad for you.
Yeah, it's sort of that everyone's looking for that standardised, whereas everything's different. Everything's different for everyone. So, obviously, we're talking about sort of technique and tips for the squat. What would be your programming tips? How would you go about, if someone wanted to build their squat and work on it a little bit, how would you go about programming the squat?
So something for me, which I feel is quite big, because obviously squatting isn't just a lower body movement. There is a whole aspect of a full body movement. Like you can create tension in the upper body, stuff like that. But something I'd look at is frequency, most likely. A lot of my lifters squat a minimum of twice a week. There's not one of them that doesn't squat less than twice a week. One thing again, I'd take a look back at how you lift, weigh a week, look at some maximal movements, and pick a variation that is very, very specific to you. Like pause squatting for me is the holy grail. Like when I get my pause squats right, if I can run a cycle of pause squats at a higher volume as well, so actually like 7 and 9 reps for like 2 count pauses, if I can run a decent cycle of them, I know my squat's going to move. If I can move like 500 pounds plus for 7 2 count pauses, that's only going to like up my 1 rep max. It has to, right? I'm sticking in the hole and using positioning. I'm staying as tight as possible going in there, because to me, being in the hole is the most important part of the squat. Like we use cues of controlling fast out. So you control it in. This is one of the things as well, we use it a bit of an illusion. If you go slower on the way down, doesn't matter how fast you come up, you'll still look like you're moving fast. So that's kind of, we use controlling fast out. I pick a variation that suits you. If you do struggle with positioning, like you're tipping forward, you're falling back, you're struggling the hole, I'd look at something like a tempo squat. You can mix them both together. You could go a tempo pause squat. You're struggling with the position, but then you're also struggling as you kind of hit the hole. You kind of fold in a little bit. You could use a pause squat.
That's a new exercise, right there. It's a pause stop.
You can kind of bring that all to a halt in the hole. So you can use the tempo, find the position in the hole. Make sure you're keeping that tension on. Then you can fire out of there. Frequency as well. I like to squat at least 4 days apart, just kind of to let my body recover a little bit. At the moment, I'm only squatting twice a week. I have squatted 3 times a week before. We've had variation of stuff like high bar as well. I do get quite a lot from high bar because I'm a quad dominant person. That's my only asset. I have a pair of quads. Yeah, so stuff like high bar. I have looked my frequency before, but you know what? The difference of me going from 2 to 3 days doesn't really make a difference at all. Like, I haven't seen any benefits from lifting twice in the squat per week in my training cycle to lifting 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah, so frequency is a big thing. One as well, because I think it's one of those, to me, squatting is the most technical lift. Just because there's quite a few elements involved with like balance and positioning and tension and a lot of other things that come around. Practice makes perfect, right? And if you're doing it on a more frequent basis, you get better at kind of your graph, you get better at what you're doing. I'd always look at having a heavier base day. So like, see me currently on a Monday, I squat heavy. It's biggest session of the week for me. It's probably the only session that really counts. A bit, so like on a Monday I'll squat heavy. Like at the moment I have some RPE triples and then I have back offsets of percentage. So we use the RPE and the percentage together. And then later on in the week, so normally a Friday, because I normally train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Normally on a Friday at the moment I'm running pause squats, which are really, really beneficial, like we just spoke about. And the volume there is that little bit higher, so they're always 7s, always 9s. I used to only pause squat for like doubles and triples. I was always speed orientated, like everything had to move, it'd be 55 to 65%. And then when I went with Mark, we upped the reps, we linear progressed it every week, and it just helped so much. Normally as well on the 3rd day, if we were going to add another day, it'd be the day after my pause squat. I'd do like a high bar, not a percentage based, at RPE based. So I'd always look to, kind of squat at least twice a week would be my best advice for programming wise. Squat at least twice a week. Have a heavier day, have a lighter day. Lighter day probably being the variation day, or just literally having a lighter day that covers more volume. So like you may squat heavy on a Monday, on a Friday you could be doing sets of 9, sets of 7. I'm not gonna lie, these days I don't actually class like 5 or 6 as high volume, which is back in the day that would have been absolutely bad. So I'd squat for like maybe 7s, 8s, 9s and 10s on the 2nd day. You can make this a variation, but make sure if you make this a variation the percentages are different. Like, make sure you're not trying to do pulse squats for 9s with like 72% or something like that, like 3-4 weeks in.
I suppose that would be working on technique though, in your weak points. One thing that sometimes a lot of people mention is that if they squat a lot more, they can start getting pain in their shoulders, so that they don't feel like they want to squat as much. Or a couple of lifters will say, I've got tendonitis in my knees, or my knees will start hurting. How far away, I mean, not far away from the squat, but what else would you give lifters like that? Would you try and go down the route of a safety bar or a front squat? Or
so it depends. So one of the things for me, like my upper body mobility is not great, as you'll have seen. Like, I have my hands wide out. I'm currently trying to work them in. I can get in the rack now, but it just feels a little bit awkward. So I still keep the pins in. I still have my hands outside, but they are a little bit closer in. So like the upper body kind of stuff, like become comfortable. Like one of the lads that I work with here, I've just actually moved him. Like, we were just chatting and moved him over to low bar. He was having a little bit of knee pain. High bar squatter, moved him to low bar, no more knee pain.
Okay.
Why is this? Just because of the flexion that happens at the knee, the amount of extension and flexion that happens there, the ligaments pulling around the kneecap and all this jibber jabber, all this sciencey stuff, that's creating a load of knee pain for him, especially when he's controlling, then he's like bouncing out the hole, just like those high bar squatters do. Moved him over to low bar, controlled him in, fast out, no more knee pain at all. So if you are getting a little bit of knee pain, this is one of the reasons well I started running that cube. So I used to be a dive bomber, literally dive bombing high bar squatter back in the YNE days when I first compete. Literally I'd walk it out, man, that was it. Like, you have to be supersonic to catch me. I just literally used to drop, man. I did get a little bit of knee pain. And I was like, something needs to change here. So I imagine I was like loading a spring and letting it go. And my knees after that were completely fine. So if you are getting knee pain, maybe look at using that cube, controlling to the hole, nice and fast on the way out. Well, upper body mobility, this is something that I'm not going to lie, I should probably do a lot more of. But at the moment in time, it seems to be just steadily getting better. I look at loosening pecs a lot, pec minor. Really kind of digging a ball into the pec if you can, if you've got time. A little bit of external rotation. One thing that I've been kind of doing as well is like I kind of put my hands on the bar where I'd have my hands, and I kind of just like I put my head under the bar, and where I kind of feel it tight across my chest, I'll kind of push myself into it a little bit more.
Okay.
So I'll kind of lean into it, and it kind of opens me out a little bit. But if you are getting shoulder pain and say like squatting twice a week, like you're coming to the second session and like your pecs hurting or your elbow tendonitis is flaring up or something like that, using something like a safety squat bar is fine. Like even a cambered bar, so like it comes down a little bit more if you have access to stuff like that. Safety squat bar, you can still do exactly the same things. You could squat high rep. You can kind of squat a low bar pattern with a safety squat bar. If kind of on the way down you push it up a little bit and the bar kind of sits back onto the back, you can kind of find that point.
I always think it's going to fly off there.
Yeah, I think kind of the way it's balanced, it's kind of, we got one here and I've done it before where like literally man I'm pushing right up and it's like further than normally low bar. Yeah, but if you're getting tendonitis stuff like safe squat bar is cool. You can high bar with that. You can like run a high bar pattern. You can tempo squat with that. You can pause squat with that.
Yeah.
There's lots of different things you can do with that. Ideally though, you'd like to be moving a barbell pattern twice a week. But if you do have those issues, that's something maybe you could bring in.
Okay.
Just small.
So actually that's quite a nice way to finish off. I hope you all enjoyed listening to that. If anyone's got any questions or would like to get in contact with you for people to have a look at the squat or get involved in some coaching with you, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram, which is Josh_dash. I'm going to say underscore. It's got no O in it.
So this random person now.
Anyway, you can either catch me on Instagram, Facebook, Josh Greenfield. If you want to add me on there, I'll more than likely accept if you look normal. And if not, if you just want to drop me an email at jlg@strengthcoaching.co.uk, you can also get me on my email. I'll get back to you as fast as I can. But yeah.
Sweet. So thanks very much for taking the time to chat to me. Quite enjoyed listening through that. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.